Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a truly fascinating document called Power Held Accountable. It's essentially this highly structured, incredibly legally rigorous field manual, and it's designed to teach everyday citizens exactly how to hold public officials accountable. And what really makes this text so compelling is how it completely rejects the chaos of protesting or, just complaining online. Instead, it replaces all of that with a meticulous, undeniable paper trail. Now you might be wondering, how do you actually fight back against government overreach or an abuse of power without, breaking the law yourself? It's a question that sits right at the core of civic life. So often, people feel completely paralyzed when they're facing an unjust encounter with an official. Or worse, they resort to ineffective pseudo-law or those sovereign citizen tactics that just get their cases thrown out immediately. But this manual? It offers a completely different, highly systematic third option.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. The manual we're exploring takes a really unique approach. It actually grounds its powerful, real-world legal strategies in ancient biblical principles of justice. It views the act of holding leaders accountable as a structural necessity. It neutrally, but very firmly, frames civic accountability not as some kind of political rebellion, but as a righteous obligation to ensure that those who hold power are actually using it lawfully.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the accountability playbook. Then, adopting a covenant mindset, followed by the universal documentation protocol, the Heir doctrine, and finally, real consequences, real reform. Let's get to it.
Starting off with Section 1, the accountability playbook.
The whole manual is built on three main pillars. You have your evidentiary standard for all claims, filing those claims in parallel across multiple agencies, and targeting specific, career-impacting consequences. It explicitly states that this is a manual for procedure, not protest. It firmly and repeatedly rejects pseudo-law, common law courts, or sovereign citizen tactics, warning that those are pretty much a guaranteed path to failure. Instead, it relies entirely on recognized statutory law and the long-standing pro se tradition, meaning representing yourself legally. It's all about empowering citizens to use the system's actual rules against the abuse.
Moving right along to Section 2, adopting a covenant mindset.
This is absolutely crucial before filing a single piece of paperwork. You have to understand the stark contrast between vengeance and accountability. Vengeance is personal, right? It's an emotional reaction where you just want the official to suffer. Accountability, on the other hand, is completely structural. The goal isn't personal suffering. The goal is simply having the official removed from the position of power they abused. The manual warns that vengeance will absolutely poison your effort, whereas focusing on structural accountability restores the public office to its lawful purpose.
And hey, this isn't just high-level philosophy, it's incredibly practical. As the text highlights, tone is literally evidence of seriousness. Think about it. An internal affairs investigator reading a complaint written out of personal vengeance and rage, they're going to dismiss it by the end of the first paragraph. But a complaint written with a calm, structural focus lands completely differently. Adopting that covenant mindset is quite literally an operational necessity to get your file taken seriously by the bureaucracy.
Okay, let's jump into Section 3, the universal documentation protocol.
Now, if there's an absolute golden rule in this manual, it's using the checklist in Chapter 5 for every single encounter, and it operates on a very strict 24-hour rule. You must start documenting on the scene by verbally stating the time, location, and the official stated reasons out loud. Why? To lock it right into their body camera audio. Then, you immediately capture witness contact info before they scatter. Finally, the clock is ticking. You have exactly 24 hours to complete that full written checklist of the event before memories fade, witnesses disappear, or video footage gets quietly overwritten.
What's really fascinating here is that this isn't just some abstract idea. This is a tangible, ready-to-use toolkit provided right in the manual. If you don't use this Chapter 5 checklist to build a contemporaneous record within that 24-hour window, the manual argues that any later filing you make is basically just a wish. But if you do complete this record, your filing suddenly transforms into highly actionable evidence.
But to even use that checklist, you've got to survive the encounter with your evidence intact, right? So the manual lays out these crucial habits. Always comply with physical commands so you don't give them an excuse for force, but clearly, verbally decline consent to searches or questions. Calmly voice details out loud. If injured, immediately photograph bruising over 72 hours and gather all medical records. By maintaining complete control of your emotions and your actions during the encounter, you walk away with the exact evidentiary ammunition you need for the next step.
Next up is Section 4, the Heir doctrine.
This is where we get into the cornerstone of the whole system,
filing parallel complaints to ensure accountability. If you submit one complaint to one local agency, it is incredibly easy for a mid-level manager to just quietly bury it in a desk drawer. But if you submit that exact same complaint to 5 different independent oversight bodies on the exact same day, they literally cannot hide it. The manual uses a brilliant metaphor here. One single arrow is easily deflected by one shield, but a coordinated volley of arrows, all striking the target at the exact same time, simply cannot be brushed aside.
So what are these arrows in real life? Well, you aren't just firing off an angry email to the local police chief. No, you are simultaneously sending your documented files to internal affairs, the state board that certifies police officers, the district attorney who has to log dishonest cops on the Brady list, and if lawyers or judges are involved, the state bar or the Judicial Qualifications Commission. Because each of these agencies has its own jurisdiction and its own unique set of incentives, an IA investigator simply cannot ignore a complaint if they know the DA and the state certifying board are already looking at the exact same file.
But, and this is a big but, you don't just fire those arrows blindly. You follow a highly disciplined timeline. Day 1 is the encounter and filling out your immediate checklist. By day 3, you send legal letters demanding they preserve their video footage. By day 7, you're filing open records requests to get their official reports. Then, and this is vital, you wait until day 30 to actually file your parallel complaints. Patience is absolutely key here. You want to give the officials time to commit their false statements to a sworn report before you spring the trap with your contradicting video evidence.
And finally, Section 5, Real Consequences, Real Reform.
So the ultimate takeaway here is consistency. You're building one master fact pattern from your initial Chapter 5 checklist, and you use it across every single template and parallel filing. That consistency is your greatest weapon. When an official's false report is suddenly hit with a wall of consistent evidence-backed filings across half a dozen agencies, it creates an undeniable record against selective enforcement, excessive force, or everyday government abuse.
Which really just leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question. When you are faced with an abuse of power, how are you going to react? Will you respond with silence and just let it happen? Will you respond with useless rage that just gets your case dismissed anyway? Or will you adopt that structural covenant mindset, use the checklist, and respond with cold, hard, documented procedure? This manual proves that the machinery for accountability actually exists out there. You just have to be disciplined enough to use it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.